I was 63 years old when I realized I didn't know where home was anymore. I was standing in my kitchen, the one with the marble countertops I'd saved for, the German appliances, the window that looks out over a yard I pay someone else to mow, and I was making coffee, the same coffee I've made every morning for 30 years. But that morning I couldn't remember the word for it in my first language. I stood there with the filter in my hand and the word was just gone. My name is Elena. I'm 74 now. I came to this country when I was 26 years old with 2 suitcases and a husband who promised me we'd go back home in 5 years, maybe 10 at most, just long enough to save money, to build something, to give our future children a better start. Then we'd return. That was the plan. I need to tell you something about that plan. I grew up in a small city you've probably never heard of. We had a river, a main square, a church that was older than any building in this entire country. My mother made soup every Sunday. My father read the newspaper in the same chair for 40 years. I had friends I'd known since I was 6 years old. We'd sit in cafes and talk for hours about nothing. When I left, I thought I was putting that life on pause. I thought I could just pick it up again later, like a book you set down and come back to. That's what I need you to understand. I didn't think I was leaving. I thought I was borrowing time from somewhere else. My husband, his name was Miguel. He got a job in a factory first. I cleaned houses. We lived in a basement apartment where you could hear everyone's footsteps above you. The toilet ran constantly. In winter, we wore sweaters inside, but we were saving money. Every month, Miguel would count it out on the kitchen table. He had a notebook where he wrote down exactly how much we needed before we could go back. The number kept changing. First, it was enough to buy a house. Then it was enough to buy a house and start a business. Then it was enough to make sure our kids, we had 2 by then, could go to university back home. Our kids, Roberto and Clara, they were born here. That wasn't part of the original plan either, but it happened, and we told ourselves it didn't change anything. We spoke our language at home. We cooked our food. We celebrated our holidays. I made sure of that. Every December I would spend 2 days making tamales, the way my grandmother taught me. I would put on the music from home and I would tell my children stories about the place they came from. Except they didn't come from there, they came from here. Roberto was 7 when he told me he didn't want to speak Spanish at school anymore. Some kid had made fun of his accent. I told him he didn't have an accent, everyone else did. But he stopped speaking it outside the house anyway. Clara was easier. She liked the stories, liked the food. But I noticed she never asked questions about going back. Neither of them did. Miguel and I didn't talk about it much. We were busy. He moved from the factory to a supervisor position. I stopped cleaning houses and started working at a school cafeteria. Better hours, benefits. We bought a small house in 1989, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a yard big enough for a garden. I planted tomatoes and peppers and herbs I couldn't always find in the stores here. The garden was a little piece of something I could control. We told ourselves we were still going back, but the notebook with the numbers stopped coming out. The house back home that we were going to buy, my brother bought it instead. The business Miguel was going to start, his cousin started one, and it failed within 2 years. And our kids were in school here, had friends here, spoke English with each other when they thought we weren't listening. I went back to visit 3 times in 30 years, 3 times. The first time was for my father's funeral. I'd been gone 12 years. My mother looked smaller than I remembered. The city had changed, new buildings, new roads, stores I didn't recognize. My childhood friends had lives I'd missed completely. Marriages, children, divorces, jobs, deaths. I spent 2 weeks there and I felt like a tourist. The second time was when my mother got sick. I stayed for a month. She didn't recognize me at the end. She kept calling me by my sister's name. The third time was for her funeral. Between those visits, I worked, I raised my kids, I became a citizen, we both did. Miguel and I in 1994. It felt like a formality at the time. Just paperwork, made traveling easier, made work easier. But I remember the ceremony. They played the national anthem and everyone put their hands on their hearts, and I did too, automatically. And afterward I felt strange for hours, like I'd betrayed something, though I couldn't say what. Roberto graduated high school, then college. He's a software engineer now, lives in Seattle with his wife. Her name is Jennifer. She's nice. Her parents are from here, from nowhere, just here. They have 2 kids. My grandchildren speak about 15 words of Spanish between them, all food related. Taco, abuela, that's about it. Clara became a teacher. She married a man whose parents came from the same country we did. So I thought maybe she'd keep more of it alive. And she tries, she really does. But her kids go to school here, play soccer here, watch the same shows as every other kid here. They went back once on a vacation, and they spent the whole time asking when they could go to the beach, could they get Wi-Fi, why didn't anyone speak English? Miguel died 4 years ago, heart attack, fast. He was 71. We'd been married 46 years. At the funeral, Roberto gave a eulogy about how his father had achieved the American dream, came here with nothing, worked hard, raised a family, owned a home, sent both kids to college. Everyone nodded. It was a good eulogy. It was true. But after everyone left, I sat in that same house we'd bought in 1989, the one we were supposed to live in temporarily, and I couldn't remember the last time Miguel and I had talked about going back. Not in the someday when we save enough way. Really talked about it. At some point, we'd just stopped mentioning it. The dream we'd built our entire lives around had evaporated so gradually, we didn't notice it was gone. I'm still in that house now. Roberto wants me to move closer to him in Seattle. Clara thinks I should get a condo, something smaller, easier to maintain. They're probably right, but I've lived here longer than I lived anywhere back home. This is where I raised them. This is where Miguel had his heart attack, in the backyard watering the tomatoes. I go to the grocery store and I don't need to think about which aisle anything is in. I know all the shortcuts to avoid traffic. I recognize people at church, at the bank, at the pharmacy. I've lived in this place for 48 years. That's longer than most people I know back home have been alive, but I still don't call it home. See, here's what I figured out too late. You can't keep a place on pause. You can't leave something behind and expect it to wait for you unchanged. Every year I was here, I was also not there. My nieces and nephews grew up without knowing me. My friends made memories I wasn't part of. The language changed. There are words now I don't know, slang I don't understand. When I video call my sister, sometimes I have to ask her what something means. And my kids, my beautiful kids, they're not from there. They're from here, completely fully from here. And I'm so proud of them. Roberto's doing well. Clara loves teaching. They're good people. They're happy. But they're not who I thought they'd be when I imagined raising children. I thought I'd raise them in 2 languages, 2 cultures, with roots in 2 places. Instead, I raised them here while constantly telling them about a place they had no memory of, no connection to. I gave them a nostalgia for something they never had. That's the thing about leaving. You don't lose the place all at once. You lose it in tiny pieces over decades. You lose it every Christmas you don't spend there, every wedding you miss, every funeral you can't afford to fly back for, every phone call that gets shorter because you've run out of shared references. You lose it in the accent that fades from your English, but also in the words you forget in your first language. You think you're building something. You think sacrifice means something. And it does. It does. My children have opportunities I never had. They didn't grow up poor. They got educated. They're comfortable. That's worth something. That's worth everything. But here's what I didn't know. You can win and lose at the same time. I achieved what I came here to achieve. The house, the stability, the better life for my kids. On paper, I did everything right. People see me and they see success. Immigrant success. The kind they write articles about. But I'm 74 years old and I belong nowhere completely. I'm too foreign here. After 48 years, people still comment on my accent, still ask me where I'm really from, still compliment my English like it's surprising. And when I go back there, I'm too foreign there too. I don't know the politicians, don't follow the news the right way, don't understand the new slang, dress slightly wrong, tip wrong, use phrases that are outdated. My grandchildren will never have this problem. They're fully from here, but that means they're not from there at all. The thing I tried to preserve by leaving that connection, that culture, that sense of place, I couldn't keep it. You can't carry a country with you. You can try, you can cook the food and play the music and tell the stories, but it's not the same. It's a memory of a thing, not the thing itself. And here's the part that keeps me up at night. I don't know if I'd do it differently. If I could go back and tell my 26-year-old self what this would cost, would I tell her not to come? I don't know. Because my kids have good lives. They really do. And Miguel and I, we had a good life too, in its way. We loved each other. We worked hard. We built something. But we also lost something we can never get back. So I want to tell you something. If you'll listen, if you're young and you're thinking about leaving or staying or chasing something somewhere else, if you're telling yourself just for a few years or just until I save enough or just until things are better, time is not neutral. Every choice you make, you're also making 1,000 other choices you don't see yet. Every year you spend in one place is a year you're not spending somewhere else. And the people you leave behind, they keep living. They don't pause. They can't. I'm not saying don't go. Sometimes you have to go. Sometimes staying would be worse. I'm not saying I regret my choice. I don't know if I do or not. It's too big to regret, too tangled up with everything good in my life. But I am saying, know what you're trading. Don't tell yourself you'll go back. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But don't build your entire life around a maybe that keeps getting pushed further away. Don't sacrifice the present for a future that might never come. Don't tell yourself you're preserving something by leaving it behind. You're not. You're leaving it behind, that's all. It will change without you. And if you're already gone, if you're already years into this and you're starting to realize what I realized, then please don't do what I did. Don't wait. Call them, visit them, learn the new slang, follow the new politics, stay connected however you can. Don't let the gap get so wide you can't cross it anymore. Or if you're the one watching people leave, don't assume they'll come back. Don't wait for them. Live your life. Send them pictures. Tell them what's happening. Don't let the distance become silence. I think about Miguel sometimes those last few years. We'd sit on the back porch in the evening and he'd water the garden, and we'd talk about the kids, the grandkids, what we needed to fix around the house. Normal things, small things. And I wish I'd asked him, do you remember when we said we'd go back? What happened to that? But I never did. Maybe he would have said he'd forgotten about it. Maybe he would have said he'd been thinking about it every day. I'll never know. I still make tamales every December. My grandchildren eat them and say they're good, and then they ask if we have ketchup. Clara helps me make them now. She's learned the recipe. Maybe that's something. Maybe that's enough. I don't know. What I do know is this. I am 74 years old. I live in a country I moved to when I was 26. I raised my children here. I buried my husband here. I have a mortgage here, a doctor here, a routine here. This is my life. But when I dream in the language I learned first. And when I die, I've thought about this. I don't know where they should bury me. There with my parents, here with Miguel. It shouldn't be this complicated. But it is. So that's what I wanted to tell you. You think you're just making a decision about where to live, what job to take, where to raise your kids. But you're not. You're deciding who you'll become, what you'll lose, where you'll belong. And sometimes those decisions are necessary. Sometimes they're worth it. But don't lie to yourself about the cost. Because here's what no one tells you about chasing a dream. Sometimes you catch it. Sometimes you get everything you came for. And you can still end up standing in your kitchen at 74 years old, trying to remember the word for coffee in the language your mother spoke, and realizing you're homesick for two places at once. And you can't go back to either one. Not really. Not all the way.